Hello everybody, welcome back to Dice Anvil. Today we are talking about everyone's favorite thing to talk about when it comes to a fantasy world or a TTRPG is the magic systems. All these magic systems will be used in the TTRPG that I'm making right now called Triconomist. It's still in the alpha set of rules, and all your comments and all your likes influence that. So if you want to be a part of it, please like and subscribe. And I got a bunch, so I'm going to run through them. But something also I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on a scale, 5 being the most structured or rules heavy, and 1 being the most fluid and loose magic systems. You could compare it to hard and soft, but that's not really how they operate mechanically. So I'm describing them as structured or loose. So there are 2 groups of different magic in this world. There's natural magic and divine magic. We're gonna go over natural magic first. The first one we got is Sarimite magic, and it's a gem, and it glows white when activated. What does it do? It forms a nexus, and a nexus is a connection with something. It can be a connection with another being of some kind, or it can be a connection with an inanimate object. In Chalora, the jungle nation of this game, there is a philosopher academy, and in it, they also teach how to use Sarimite magic. They do that by each of these philosopher students have their own Sarimite gem, and that's like their own personal gem that they're linked to. That gem can be linked to other things. An example of this could be an animal of some kind. You could have a shard of Sarimite implanted into an animal, and then you'll have a connection to them. Maybe you can have a Sarimite gem in your sword, and if you kill someone with that sword, you gain access to their memories. Sarimite can do a lot of diverse things, but it all works in the same rule set of linking your neurology to something else. Because of that, I put it on 4 in our scale. If you have a good understanding of how the science of Sarimite works, you'll be able to use this in so many different ways. The other natural magic source, number 2, is Janak magic. In the world of Triconomist, there is a layer of energy that covers the surface of the earth and weaves itself within everything around it. Think about the Force if you're a Jedi. We don't know where this energy came from, but we know that you can gain access to it. When you do gain access to it, you open up a 6th sense called your Janak. So Janak really isn't the magic itself, it's your ability to manipulate this energy that they call the flow. When you unlock your Janak, you as a player receive this little paper cutout thing that has Janak. Your level Janak refers to the number associated with that attribute, telling you how many dice you roll, just like all the other attributes that you have. But there's something else on here. Where you might have skills, instead you have these. These are all different spells. This piece of paper works like a skill tree. Once you learn an ability, you'll fill out one of those shapes right above the word that represents the spell. And it comes with 3 automatically. You come with Hear, Light, and Inhale. Every time you upgrade your Janak, you're able to get a new skill from your skill tree of spells. You do that the same way you gain skills. So when I roll doubles and then make it on a knowledge check, then I'll be able to increase my Janak. The thing is though, is that it works the same way like a skill tree, when you can only get the next one down if you have the one right above it. So if I inhale, I could level up and go to hold. Later, if I upgrade again, I can go from hold to exhale. However, I can't go straight to exhale if I don't have hold. In sense, that's just your awareness of things through the flow. The flow has a natural frequency in its vibrations, and you automatically are assigned your ability to hear that. You can hear the vibrations of this energy moving throughout the rest of the world, and you can detect the strength of certain frequencies to know how saturated this energy is in certain areas. When you're in an area that's more saturated with that flow energy, you'll have an advantage when rolling for spells. So if you can hear how much flows in an area, that's going to help you a lot later down the road. You also got Speak. You can speak. Just like how you can hear certain frequencies, you can also add frequencies to the flow. The same way that my sound is moving through your phone or through your computer into your ears, sound vibrations can move from the player's mouth through the flow, this plane of existence, to something else. If there's someone that can hear Janak energy and you speak through the Janak, they'll be able to hear it. The last one you got is See, which is you can literally see beings and entities by making your eyes focus on the flow energy. This means you can basically see through walls except not see certain details. Next up, you got Forge, which is probably my favorite of the 3 categories of spells. You got Light, which is the one it comes with automatically. You can access the flow energy and make it so it starts to glow and maybe beam out, illuminating things. Just helpful to have. The next phase you got is Glass, and Glass is basically you taking that same energy, but instead of making it light, it crystallizes into a hardening substance. You can use this to make shards to act as almost magic missiles. You can use it to materialize a sword of some kind or a blade you can use. You can even use it to make a shield. The only thing about Glass though is that it's very breakable, so it won't last long in combat, but you can still create it whenever you need. The third Forge spell is Heat. Almost like a laser, it can feel like. Maybe you have your glass sword and you want it to burn through something. You can then cast Heat if you have that spell. The third kind of spell you can use with your Janak abilities is Breath. You could inhale, absorb energy from the flow, and you can have an advantage when casting a next spell. You can hold when you become indetectable by people that can use Janak, and you're invisible from the rest of the world. The only catch is that you have to focus on it. You have to use 1 stress per minute of use. And then you got Exhale, is when you create a blast of energy that repels everything around you. I put Janak at a 3. Why? It's because all these spells are just words that you're assigned, and you have a general idea of how they work, but really it's up to your imagination and the GM to decide how that's going to work. There's a game called Wild Seed that uses a similar mechanic. When you just have a certain word associated with what you can do, you can either shout it or whisper it. I think that's so cool. I definitely took some inspiration from that game. Next up, we got Divine Magic. Now, most of the gods in this world are pretty passive, but you can see that there are some entities that aren't really wardens, is what the word for gods in this game is, but they can still influence and provide magic abilities through these magic systems. The first one we got is Zealot. Zealots gain favor from their deity that they serve by doing acts of worship or acts of obedience to them. There are a lot of backgrounds that I talked about last week that are zealots, and they have a zealot ability, and this is how they work. Normally you have passion slots and harmony slots that will be used for different abilities, and they'll only be refilled by achieving a goal. But when you're a zealot, you can refill your passion by doing something worshipful for that deity. So if I'm a zealot of Huitzil, I could find an opportunity to maybe tell somebody about my faith and maybe even try to convince them to join it. If that happens, if the GM allows it, I could receive a passion point from that. At any point in the game, I could cash in those passion points, and each one represents a D6, which the GM will roll. So if I have 4 passion points saved up from all this worshipful acts I have, then the GM would roll all 4 of those dice, and then your deity will do something for you. I have a chart here for any GMs using this roll. It's called a divine roll. If I'm cashing in 4 dice from Huitzil, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to call out to my deity that I'm serving, and I need him to strike down this bad guy right now. The GM will take 4 d6s and roll them and refer to this scale. If it's a 1 to 3, the deity is silent and does not answer. It's basically a fail. If it's 4 to 6, you'll receive a sign or some insight. If it's a 7 to 9, you'll be strengthened or something else will be weakened. If it's a 10 to 12, you'll experience some kind of natural manipulation. Maybe the sun beams harder, maybe a fire starts, maybe plants grow around them, or maybe an animal comes out of nowhere. If it's a 13 through 19, you'll experience some kind of miracle, something that is unexplainable, and the GM can have fun with that one. If it's a 20 through 30, then that deity will smite somebody or save somebody. Again, you might not need your god to smite somebody, so you might not want to cash in all 4 or all 5 of your dice, but if you need some more insight, or maybe you need to be strengthened in a moment, then throw a couple dice in. Because of the way the Zealot runs and because of how versatile it is, and you can kind of get away with a lot, I put Zealot as a number 1. It is very loose in terms of how these magic systems work. I think it's cool. I think you can be super dynamic. You can make it part of your character. You can have some really fun moments of like improv or role play in there. So I think it could be really useful. The next one we got in the Divine Magic category is judge. A judge is a person that is gifted a power from a deity. Doesn't need to be a warden like the Zealot does. It can be a shard holder or something else lore related that I yap about in all my other videos, so check those out. But judges are assigned a specific ability by something. A lot of my backgrounds I've already covered are judges, and they have a judge ability. For example, we got the Takima's judge ability for the knight from Amalon. It's just a regular knight, but he's also a judge of Takima. He can slow down time in an area for a few seconds. The reason that happens is because Takima is the goddess of time. You can be creative on what deity you serve or what being you have promised to. The thing is though, it's a relationally based transaction. So if you do something to upset this deity that has gifted you this power, they could take it away, and that creates an interesting dynamic or friction that can be used throughout the game that I encourage the GM to elaborate on and play off of. Any of this magic can be added to a character even if they weren't given one in the beginning when creating their background, but especially the judge. If you encounter a deity that's powerful enough to give you an ability, the GM should have a hard choice for a player, like, hey, I can give you the ability to manipulate fire if you kill this NPC that you've actually grown to like a little bit. But it's a 5 on our scale. It's very structured. It works a lot like D&D spells. It tells you exactly how the spell works, which can give comfort to somebody. You know what it does. You know what the cause and effects are. The only parts you can be super creative in is where it came from and if you can lose it. The last magic system we got in this game is shard magic. You guys might know from the first video of last week, again, watch those please if you haven't, that shards are a big deal in this world. A god is broken apart, and because of that, there are a lot of repercussions like the absence of disease or decay, and shard magic. If you have a shard, then it's gonna be a little more complicated. It's theoretical that a player can get their hands on an actual magic shard, and if they do, they're gonna become very powerful, and I'll kind of explain what that would do. If a player comes across a shard, it will be this crystal looking figure of light, and if they interact with it, they will take on that aspect that shard represents. If you have the shard of sight, then all of a sudden you can do pretty much any spell you can think of relating to sight, and you'll roll for either passion or harmony. If you have the shard of decay, maybe you can grab an enemy and make their flesh deteriorate at a really fast rate and kill them, and you'll just roll passion for that. Editing the video and just thought of another mechanic I want to add to this magic system. Watching this over, I realized it might be a little too OP, so I think you should use a stress every time you're going to cast a spell as well, just to make it more balanced. That's it. Again, these are very loose, and it's very theoretical that you'll get your hands on a shard, but if you do, that's how it works. It is definitely a 1 on the looseness scale because you can kind of do whatever once you get your hands on one. The much more common version of shard magic is if you are a Shardborn. If you are a Shardborn, that means you are a descendant of a shard holder, and that means you have not the powers of that shard holder, but you are able to manipulate and overcome the effects of your grandfather, which is Vorath Kai, the Warden of Decay. Just like as I talked about in the Outlanders video that I posted last week, a Shardborn has 2 main abilities, Flesh Bending and Regeneration. If you cast Flesh Bending, you're able to manipulate your limbs, your face, your legs, or even add new limbs based on kind of what you think of. It works for an hour, and it costs a passion point to cast. If I'm about to go into a room and I don't want to look like myself, or I want to disguise, I can flesh bend my face to look like someone completely different. If I need to climb over a wall, I can flesh bend my arms into claws to help me up there. Regenerate works exactly how you think it does. You're able to use a harmony point and then heal. You'll roll for harmony 1 health for every 5 rolled and 2 health for every 6 rolled. Everyone knows powers are cool, but limitations are better. So what's the limitation of Shardborn? You burn when you're in moonlight. If you're walking around at night and the moon is casting on you, you'll receive damage from that. Why is this? No one really knows for sure, but people think it's because you're an abomination. And Takima, the goddess of time, the universe, and the moon, is casting judgment on you. But those people are probably just against Shardborn, so it could be anything, right? There you go. Those are all the magic systems for Triconomist Alpha. I want to know what you guys think about it. If you have any ideas of how you think it should be changed, tweaked, or if you think there should be more limitations to certain ones, please leave it down in the comments. I'm always open to have conversations down there. And please like and subscribe if you want to see this game that I'm working on come to fruition. Thank you guys so much for commenting, liking, subscribing, and please leave a comment down below what you think. Thanks, guys.